Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share insights on what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fiume, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have the founder, CEO, and most proudly, food geek in chief of Sticky Fingers Cooking, Erin Fletter. Erin, how are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you, Frank.
Great seeing you again. Yeah, so we met at the Emerging Franchise Conference back in 2023. We had a chance to spend some time together at the roundtable discussion. It was great. Got to know you a little bit. But I guess I just learned today that your most proud title is Food Geek in Chief. So what's that all about?
Yeah, that's my self-bestowed title, and one that I'm very, very proud of. I love everything about food. Food is really my life, and I ended up building a business and a brand around my love of food and my love of sharing food and teaching about food. So I am a complete food geek.
Okay.
Through and through.
So we have a lot in common, of course, with both of our experiences being in the child-related business. How did you get started in the business?
Yeah, I actually got started through my own children. They were doing after-school enrichment in their school, in their elementary school, and I had never heard of that before. And I thought, what an incredible opportunity for children to try new things in a very safe way, being at their school, which is like their second home, that they can try all sorts of things, from various sports to art to science to robotics, whatever it might be. And then I was also, being a mom of 3 kids, I was also thrilled at the prospect of not having to shuttle my 3 kids across town for various activities. So I thought, how can this is an amazing opportunity to grow in the after school enrichment space and teach kids about cooking, since I am a food geek through and through. And I really, so that's really how Sticky Fingers Cooking was born, from my kitchen table with my father and my husband, and just sketching out this idea of how can we make this happen. That was back in 2011.
Wow. Had you ever owned a business before? Was this your first venture?
I've been somewhat of a serial entrepreneur my entire life, always starting new things. My husband's a restaurateur. We've opened restaurants together. He has a wonderful restaurant here in Denver, Colorado. And so yes, I had opened up businesses before, but never to this level. Never something that, Sticky Fingers Cooking is an extension of myself. It's like my right arm. And so once we kind of crafted this out, and that it was a model that would be amazing for communities and schools and kids, and then we figured out that it could be this incredibly fruitful business model as well, I just became obsessed, and I'm still obsessed with Sticky Fingers Cooking.
Oh, well, I remember when we met back in November 23, one of the things that stuck with me that was most fascinating about you is being at the Emerging Franchisor Conference. A lot, or most of the attendees that were there, were not only new in franchising, but they were new to their business. They had not run their business a whole long time, but you really had your act together. You founded the company in 2011, so you had been already running it for 12 years before you franchised your company. And I remember being so impressed with your systems and processes in place, and you had a team. And for you, franchising was just kind of a natural evolution of what you had already done. Was there like a defining moment when you decided to franchise? Like, what prompted this? Because you had been running your business so successfully for so long.
Oh, thank you for that. Yes. It definitely, I believe that our history, our team, our systems, our processes is a huge differentiator for us. And it was something that We had been in business for 12 years before going down the franchise road.
Mhm.
And we also had been running as an independent company with lots of employees in 3 states for over a decade. So we had, we knew that Sticky Fingers Cooking, what we did is so important. And we love what we do so much that we always knew that we wanted to grow and scale. And we had been growing and scaling, in an internal way and expanding our business into 3 states. The defining moment for us with franchising was COVID, actually.
Hmm.
It was, I had mentioned earlier that my husband's a restaurateur. Every restaurant in the world was closed during COVID. Well, every school was also closed during COVID. So we never worked harder in our lives and really scrambled to do everything that we possibly could to keep, not only keep our businesses afloat, but to pivot and to figure out how we could help the community, and really kind of looking internally into my leadership and looking at Sticky Fingers Cooking. I really, for the first time, honestly, looked into women business owners in the US, and I got pretty fired up. I got pretty upset by what I read. So Frank, I started, before COVID, the history of female business ownership in the US is quite abysmal. It's we're over 50% of the population in the US. We own about 41% of the businesses, not quite 50%, but 41.
Mhm.
And of those 41% of women-owned businesses, it's 2% of those female-owned businesses gross over $1 million a year.
Hmm.
To me, that's completely unacceptable. And I was shocked to read that statistic. Then on top of it, coupled with COVID, women were the first to leave their jobs. They were the first to take care of the community, to take care of aging family members, their children. And a recent report just came out that 3 million women are slated not to come back to the workforce because of COVID forevermore.
Hmm.
And, my team and I really looked like what we have here is we have every system in place. We have our own proprietary technology that runs 85% of all operations of our business. We were ready to scale and grow. And then we were introduced to franchising and absolutely fell in love that we could be creating more women business owners, more business owners in the US, while spreading Sticky Fingers Cooking to communities across the US as well.
Wow. That's the thing about franchising, is that people do start for different reasons, but one of the most common reasons is it's mission led. And for you, it was kind of a dual reason, right? You had this purpose of wanting to grow Sticky Fingers Cooking, but that dismal stat of, how many women are not grossing, over $1 million in revenue is, it's crazy, and not coming back to the workforce.
It's pretty shocking.
It is shocking.
Yeah. I mean, we're founded and a homegrown company that is a social enterprise, and then to also be able to grow it through franchising and to see dreams come true. I mean, we are a new franchise brand. We're not new to business, but a new franchise brand. And to see our franchise owners, and we just had our very first franchise owner, Allie, in Austin, Texas. Yesterday, she celebrated her year anniversary.
That's awesome.
Her life and her family's life has completely transformed.
Isn't it amazing?
Catching the franchise bug. I mean, it is just amazing. And one of the ways that Allie surprised us by thanking us is she came to a franchise expo in Houston, Texas. It was 2 weeks ago. She showed up with one of her employees, and she stayed all weekend talking to people that were interested in a Sticky Fingers Cooking franchise. And she was on her feet for 10 hours a day and didn't stop talking to people. And
That's
just
amazing.
that alone, I mean, so she is also so excited about her life and how her life has been transformed that she wants to share that with other people.
That's beautiful. I think that the biggest shock for me in franchising that catches us all off guard as founders is that when we start our brand, you started your brand because your love of cooking. I started my brand for the love of sports. And then we found out that the impact we were making on people wasn't even something that was even on our radar when we first started. And then we realized this had nothing to do with cooking or sports or kids. This has everything to do with changing people's lives, giving them an opportunity to live their dream. And we didn't see that coming. Nobody does.
That's absolutely beautiful. It gave me chills. I couldn't say it better myself.
Let's go through some of the stats on your franchise. So you have currently 6 franchises that are open. You have 2 company owned. You're in 5 states, right? Colorado, Illinois, Virginia, Texas, and California. Interesting statistic going back to the female-led franchise. So how many are female-owned franchises?
Yes, we have 5 wonderful franchise owners. 4 of them are female, and they're all mothers.
And now you've let the first male into the system. Oh boy.
Oh yes, Paul is incredible. He's our franchise owner in Dallas, and he fits right in, and we are thrilled to welcome him.
That's fantastic. I love that. What was life like for you when you first became a franchisor?
It was actually very exciting and very busy. I'm used to busy. I'm used to working hard. You know, when we first became a franchisor, you know, the thing is that we really leaned into this term that has been floating around called responsible franchising.
Sure.
And I mean, that was to us, it was something that's already baked into our culture from day one. It's all about relationships. It's all about supporting one another. So for us, it was you know, that was a term that made a lot of sense to us, and we've really leaned into that. And so by becoming a new franchisor, it was really important to us to always recognize that, yes, we know the ins and outs of Sticky Fingers cooking. We have every system you can imagine in place. All of the details are taken care of. And we also need to be self-aware enough to know that we've never been a franchisor before. We've had hundreds of employees for years, but what is it like to support new business owners? So we have been taking my executive team and I. There's 7 of us, 6 of us are women. We've been working together for the greater part of a decade together, building this business. And so our team and I were always reminding ourselves that this year and the next year, as we emerge as being this new franchise brand, is that our job is to be self-aware and to learn from our franchise owners what they need from us, and to be open and flexible and get a lot of feedback from them. So we have been, you know, with every franchise owner that is onboarded, we get feedback from them. We're adjusting things on how we can make it better for the next franchise owner. We have I hold monthly roundtables with our franchise owners about the soft skills of business leadership and what it's like to be a leader. And so it's been a wonderful thing to have this new focus, and I get a lot of energy to help empower new leaders across the US. So it's been wonderful.
You've I think one of the things that's most impressive, Erin, that you've done is you've been able to make that transition from being strictly this company-owned business for so long, to do that for 12 years before franchising, and then realizing that the role, of course, is different when you are supporting franchise owners versus managing employees. And you've been able to make that transition where a lot of companies can't, because they kind of get set in their ways, especially doing something for over a decade like you did. How did you?
Yeah. Well, and that's interesting. I've never, nobody's ever asked that question to me, but I think it goes back to when we were talking about when we first met at the IFA, and you know, there's a lot of emerging brands out there, and as you said, they were also building their businesses.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine becoming a franchisor unless I had 12 years. We had 12 years under our belt. And the reason why we can focus on becoming franchisors is because literally our systems are so ingrained. And like I said, we have technology. We have our own proprietary technology platform. Our systems are so rock solid that our team can focus on becoming franchisors and supporting a large base of franchise owners. And I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, from my own experience, I I personally couldn't do that unless we had over a decade of experience running our business and going through all those pitfalls of, what works, what doesn't work, oh, we need a system for that. Oh, and oh, this is how we should handle this.
Hmm.
And so with every detail buttoned down, on the operations, like your operations have to be rock solid in order for you to become a franchisor.
Yeah. How are you able to ensure consistency across the franchise locations, knowing you have done this you did it for the more of a decade on your own, or I should say, as a company-owned business? But how have you been able to ensure the consistency of course your franchisees?
Yeah, so we have, as I said, we have an amazing team of people. We have a lead chef that goes out to the various locations and helps train, the new chefs to make sure that they're following the Sticky Fingers cooking method. We also, again, going back to systems and technology, as I mentioned, our software system, it runs 80%, 85% of all operations,
Hmm.
and everything is transparent across the board. So as a franchisor, we can go in and see how people are doing. They get KPI reports on a weekly basis about what their business is doing. Our CFO meets with them every month to make sure that they're on track, and we can just everything is run through our software. So we already know that all of the systems are running as needed because a lot of them are automated. And we also do check-ins every 2 weeks with our franchise owners as well.
Okay, I'm gonna go off-roading here a little bit. I'm so curious to know, like, what's one or two of the most popular dishes on the menu, and who came up with all the menu items?
Oh, I love my favorite question. I love it. Yes. So one of the things when starting Sticky Fingers Cooking, like I said, I call myself a food geek. I really wanted to make sure that kids could take our classes for years and years and never repeat a recipe.
Oh, okay.
So from day one, I came up with a concept that we call the recipe of the week. And the recipe of the week is we across all territories in the US. Every single week of the school year, it's a brand new recipe with supported curriculum. And so we've been doing this for 13 years. So every single week of the school year, there is an entirely new recipe from typically from somewhere across the globe.
Okay.
So kids learn what it's like to be a child in Ethiopia and cook Ethiopian food and injera bread in an hour in their classroom, or they learn how to make pad thai from Thailand, or they learn how to make crepes from like French Parisian crepes and what it's like to be a kid in Paris. So we have thousands of recipes
Wow.
with supported curriculum, and really my favorite recipes are the ones that we're a little nervous about. It's usually anything that involves mushrooms, like mushroom lettuce wraps or something, and it's like, oh, are the kids gonna like this? And it's so funny, it always turns into this like sleeper hit, and the kids absolutely love it.
Wow. All right. Very cool. Very cool. I get asked often from new franchisors, the big challenge is how do they even find franchisees? How did you find the first five franchisees? Or how did they find
Mhm.
you?
Well, the first two is a wonderful story. Allie, that I mentioned in Austin, Texas, she is a vet. She was in the military for many, many years. Her husband as well. He's a disabled vet. She was our employee for 6 years, and so she was an employee in our Austin territory, our Austin location for 6 years, and she became our first franchise owner, which I can't think of. I don't even have the words for it. I mean, I'm so honored to know that somebody that worked for Sticky Fingers Cooking for 6 years and then loved it so much that she, decided I am going to be the first franchise owner of
Wow.
Sticky Fingers Cooking was just incredible. Our second franchise owner has an equally beautiful story. Lucy from Chicago. She and I have been working together for 13 years. She's been an employee for 13 years with Sticky Fingers Cooking. She actually moved from Denver to Chicago about a decade ago to start her family, and she didn't want to leave Sticky Fingers Cooking. And so she and I and our team created the first territory outside of Denver into Chicago, and she built up two territories, and she became our second franchise owner. Her life has been completely transformed as becoming a business owner. Her business is so unbelievably successful that her family's lifestyle changed overnight. So it was absolutely incredible. So those were our first two franchise owners that owned three territories between them. And then our second franchise owner, Trang, she is in Northern Virginia. Incredible story. She was born in Vietnam. She went to boarding school in London. And then her and her husband made her way to the US, and she's been in financial banking for years and years. She's very young. She's in her 30s. She has two young kids under the age of 5, and she is our third franchise owner. She found us on Facebook and just fell in love with what we were doing. And within 2 months of discovering us, she was a business owner and trained and ready to go. And her business has been up and running. And then Victoria, we met her at a franchise expo in San Diego. And again, 2 months after meeting us, she became a franchise owner. She's up and running as well. She's a single mom of two wonderful kids. One of her daughters is a wheelchair user. So it's really important that she has a home-based business so that she can, take care of her girls' needs. And then Paul, our wonderful new franchise owner who's in Dallas, Texas. We met him. He was just an absolute beam of light. He was also in the financial industries as well, and never found that marriage of business ownership and passion and making money and being able to do all the things that he wants to do. He was also in the financial institutions as well, financial baking, and then had a couple of food trucks on the side just because that was his passion. And when he found Sticky Fingers Cooking, he realized he could have both. And he's jumped in with both feet, and he's a rock star.
Wow. And just getting started.
Just getting started.
That's wonderful. Erin, who is your ideal franchise owner then? And what do you think are the most important traits they need to have in order to be successful, to be part of your brand?
The best franchise owners, they're what I call a unicorn. They are a very, very special person, that somebody that absolutely wants to take their own destiny by the horn. They're fearless in the way that they know that they want to do something else. They want to, that their work that they put into their work, that they will get the rewards, they'll reap the rewards from that. So that's a business owner. That is somebody that has an entrepreneurial spirit, somebody that really wants to change their life. The unicorn part is that there's somebody that also understands where a true entrepreneur wants to break all the rules. A franchise owner is somebody that loves systems that work, that they love to have a community to be with and to thrive with and to bounce ideas off of, and to use systems that work, and to have a tried and true method to follow, a recipe, really a recipe to success. So our ideal franchise owner is somebody that, first of all, loves kids. First of all, loves food. And then somebody that really is collaborative. Somebody that really wants to help their community, and somebody that's not afraid to dive in, get gritty, get a little sticky and messy, and dive into their business to grow it while following the systems and being a part of a greater team.
Awesome. What about full-time versus part-time? What's your take on that?
Yeah, a lot of our franchise owners, especially our new ones, they started out, kind of part-time, and all of them have moved into full-time ownership and running their business full-time.
Okay, but somebody can start out part-time though. You do
Yeah,
that. Okay.
yes, yeah,
Okay.
as they're getting started, yes.
And what's your take on whether it's owner operated or manager operated? Do you have an opinion on that?
We do. We have a pretty strong opinion on that. We're really looking for people that are interested in the brand, and people that are really passionate about Sticky Fingers and about their business. So we are looking only for owner operators at this time. I mean, it's we are looking for people to grow their own business and not have somebody do that for them.
Sure. I know all too well as you do, that when you're in the child related space, there's a lot of moving parts. Can you elaborate a little bit on the training and support for the franchisees?
Yes, we have. So we have a pretty extensive training process. It's done online. It's done in person. All of our new franchise owners come out to Denver for a week. It's in classroom training. It's all the training on our systems and our software and everything in between. And we have ongoing tapered support as well. So we have, as I mentioned, we have about 6 people on our franchise leadership team, and we work very closely with our franchise owners for the first 3 months, and then we taper off support as needed. So our systems and our support is very, very robust, and it is ongoing. Yes, because I can't think of anything. I mean, as you know, Frank, working with children, I can't think of a more important job to have, and we want to make sure that everything is running smoothly, safely, and that the kids are happy and healthy when they're taking our classes.
Absolutely. One of the things that I love about your concept is that it's not a brick and mortar, and it's territory based. So where are these classes being held?
Yes, and that was from day one. I mean, you and I spoke earlier about. I know that's how I9 Sports was founded as well. That
Yeah.
we again, going back to that spark, that little spark of ignition in my brain from my children doing after school in enrichment. I thought, oh my gosh, like, as a business model, we can have outlets, cooking outlets in every school. This
Hmm.
is incredible. This is a way for, as from the business side of things, for us to scale and grow very, very quickly. And then also as a social enterprise model, to be able to offer our classes to children where they otherwise wouldn't be able to participate in a cooking class. So to be able to be in schools and summer camps and YMCA's and community centers, public libraries, literally everywhere that kids are, we go to where kids are.
Hmm.
We go to where kids naturally are. So we're not driving customers to come to us. We are going to where the children are. The benefits are twofold. I mean, that we can scale and grow our business very quickly, and that we can reach out to the kids that, like I said, that otherwise couldn't find us. From the business side of things, it keeps our margins so stable. We have had stable margins for 13 years. Our
Hmm.
CFO is like, that's her like proudest thing. On our item 19 in our FDD, we actually disclose more financials than is necessary because we're so proud of our financials. And one of them is our margins, because your direct cost of a Sticky Fingers cooking franchise is services that have already been given. You
Right.
don't have a lot of overhead. You're not paying for a storefront. You're not paying for the lights to be on when there's no customers there. All of your direct costs are from cooking classes that parents have already signed up for, that you already have a full class of kids.
Hmm.
And so the margins remain very, very, very stable. So it's very predictable. And so our franchise owners are loving the business model.
Of course.
And the fact that they can manage everything from home.
Yeah. So the territory, it's a territory based franchise. How big is the territory?
We base our territory off of student population.
Okay.
Yeah, so student population, even though Sticky Fingers Cooking, we offer classes for children from ages 4, pre-kindergarten, all the way up through seniors in high school, age
Mhm.
18. Really, the bread and butter and of our operations, and the majority of our students tend to be in that pre-kindergarten, pre-K age group, all the way up to about fifth grade or sixth grade.
Sure.
So our territory is based on a student population of about 50,000 kids in a given territory that are enrolled in school from pre-K to fifth grade.
That is, by the way, that is very, very common, or I should say, we have that in common as well. It's very, very close to what we did as well with my brand. And
Oh, awesome.
yeah, we right about the same number of kids. We had a range on territory size, but it started there. And Erin, you hit the nail on the head. You said magic words earlier that I hope the audience is listening to. If for founders that are thinking of franchising their concept and they are in a territory-based type business and they're wondering, do I open this expensive brick and mortar, or do I go to the customer? That is a huge advantage, like you mentioned, about going to the customer and not having that overhead, especially in the child-related space. The magic words you said is that not having to pay to keep those lights on. Because think about it, when kids are in school, you're paying for that brick and mortar business that nobody's coming into your franchise location. And it's so expensive, as we would lovingly say, to keep the turnstiles spinning, right? And at that point, you were really open from the time kids were, getting out of school until early evening, but you're paying for a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week cost, and it's just not necessary. And I think if you have the option, the huge advantage you have and your franchisees have is they get to open multiple sticky fingers cooking classes in one territory, right? So how many venues, if I can use that term, we use that at I9, how many venues does a franchisee, do you see them having in a 50,000 kid territory?
Yeah, so in the territories, we drill down from that with that, we start at the top number of that 50,000 student population that I mentioned. Then we have a bunch of internal criteria.
Mm-hmm.
We also vet 70 schools in their area that are the cream of the crop, we tell them. And we provide them with that list. We've contacted all the schools and everything. But then beyond that, they'll typically, what we're seeing is about 170 to 225 schools in a territory, give
Mm-hmm.
or take, kind of depending on where it is in the US.
And how many venues do you see a franchisee actually operating within their territory?
It varies, honestly. I mentioned our franchise owner in Chicago. She has two territories. In one of her territories, she's the highest grossing territory for our franchise owners to date. And she has an unbelievable business. She is operating in just 56 schools because
Okay, wow.
she's so wildly successful that these 56 schools, she's operating classes more than once a week, two days a week, 3 days a week, 4 days a week. She has about 230 schools in her territory, in that one territory. And she is producing unbelievable results with just 56 schools. But then I would say on average, it's probably about 70 schools, honestly. But there's always room to grow, and there's always room to expand.
Erin, I was expecting you to say about a dozen schools. I was not expecting to hear 56 or 70 schools. I was really thinking your franchisees were going to operate in about a dozen schools in their territory. Wow.
Yeah, well, let's just say that our Chicago operations, among some of our other territories, they are blowing that statistic of female business owners of earning under $1 million a year. They're blowing that out of the water. So,
what is the average cost for a student to be in a set of classes? Is there a season, or is there a number of classes? How are the packages available to the consumer?
Yeah, so I actually developed what I call an uncurriculum, which means that we are very flexible. So we've designed Sticky Fingers to fit into any venue that would like to have us there. So we have a very flexible curriculum. We can have cooking class anywhere from 4 weeks or 4 days, all the way up to 18 weeks or beyond. So typically, I would say, again, our franchise owners set their own pricing. It depends. We're now on the East Coast and West Coast and in between. It can range anywhere from $20 a class all the way up to $35 a class, kind of depending on market situation.
All right, cool. And what's the investment range of the franchise?
We start at it's $48,000 initial franchise fee, and then the all-in cost, for everything is anywhere from $77,000 all the way up to $125,000.
Okay. What's been your biggest surprise since being a franchisor in the past year plus?
Oh my gosh, okay, first of all, I am so excited to be a newbie in the franchise space. And I call it the franchise universe because it felt so big when we first entered it. And then I realized that it's actually a really small supportive network of people, such as yourself, Frank. I mean, I keep kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, is everybody in the franchise industry really this supportive and really this kind? And I mean, collaborative. We have met the most incredible people, and of various brands, various degrees of being being born into the franchise industry, working in it for 30 years, and so just the franchise universe has been so supportive, and so that's been wonderful. Again, kind of illuminating that we're on the right path. And then as far as becoming a Sticky Fingers cooking franchisor, I mean, I get goosebumps every time I'm talking to people and seeing their excitement and seeing they're realizing that they can become a franchise owner, and then seeing people's lives change. And then on top of it, we get every week, we do a whole report with the company where we get quotes from kids from across the country and photos of them in class, and we just get all the feedback of the lives that we're changing in schools. And then the kids go home to their families and say, we want to make kale pesto, and it freaks the parents out, but then they start cooking together, and then they sit around the dinner table. So it's all this wonderful network of win-wins. I mean, franchising is such a symbiotic relationship. It's just this like infinite loop, and it just gives me so much joy and energy.
Have you given any thought to the kind of impact that you're really having on kids and families? Because you're teaching kids an incredible skill, and on top of that, you're bringing families together through food. And how amazing is that? I don't know if has that ever even dawned on you, on the rippling effect that you're having on people?
It didn't at first. It really didn't at first. It was like this beautiful unintended byproduct of teaching kids how to cook. 13 years ago, it was really like, oh, let's teach kids how to cook. And, I didn't realize how impactful it was, and that the children do go home to their family and they do talk about what they learned. And we're pushing the envelope of what kids' food is.
Sure.
There's not chicken fingers and macaroni and cheese. The kids are making these pretty elaborate meals from scratch. And so they come home and they talk about it, and they might be trying new fruits or vegetables or grains that they've never had before. So yes, we get feedback from these families, and I did not realize that we have this very gentle effect on families, where they're cooking more at home. They're sitting around the dinner table. And if we can do that more than once a year at Thanksgiving, I call that a win.
Yeah, for sure. So I have a 26-year-old daughter and a 23-year-old son. They took a cooking class together when they were like, I don't know, maybe like 8 and 11 years old together. And to this day, my wife still cooks a couple of meals from the cooking class. The kids still request when we're together as a family. And we've referred to, oh yeah, remember you guys learned that in the cooking class. So this is something that goes on for so long. I mean, it's just part of our family. It's a dish, 2 different dishes that my wife makes to this day because my kids made it. way back when.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's so amazing. Thank you for sharing that with me. We have stories like that too. I mean, where people are like, "Oh, you're in our rotation, our dinner rotation." Yeah, I have a wonderful neighbor down the street, and both of her kids took Sticky Fingers cooking classes when they're in elementary school. They both graduated, they're in college now. And, she's just like, oh yeah, your falafels are on the weekly rotation. We had just about 6 months ago, or no, it was a year. Oh my gosh, it was a year ago, almost exactly a year ago. I had a parent reach out to us and say, my kid loves Sticky Fingers cooking classes, took it all the way from the time he was in kindergarten up to third grade. He had Sticky Fingers cooking birthday parties. He's going off to college, and I'm creating a cookbook. Will you send me all of these favorite recipes, because they're all weathered and torn, and
Right.
will you send me a fresh copy? And she made a cookbook for him to and sent him off to college with it. And to me,
Wow.
I mean, that's it, just like what your family. What are the two dishes that you make?
There is a chicken dish called poppy seed chicken that my wife makes, and there's a chicken pot pie recipe that to this day my wife still makes.
Wonderful. I love that. I love that.
Two most well requested dishes. It depends on the weather, of course, for the chicken pot pie, especially here in Florida.
Yes, of course.
Erin, what's your long-term vision for the company?
Right now, we are really growing at a small and methodical pace. We really want to make sure. I mean, you can't build a skyscraper without an amazingly strong foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So, because we're new franchisors, we're just making sure that our support system for our franchise owners is really stable and strong. So for the next 2 years, we're growing at a very very steady, methodical clip, and then we're also looking to scale and grow rather quickly after that, knowing that we can onboard lots of franchise owners. So our goal in the next five years is anywhere from 80 to 100 franchise territories open.
Wow.
Across the U.S.
Across the U.S. Clearly, this is a legacy business for you. I get that. But have you thought about whether you think you're going to do this for life, or do you have an exit strategy?
I know that I know my strengths fairly well. I think I know my weaknesses even better.
Don't we all?
My business model is to hire people much smarter and more talented than I am, and that I've been doing that since day one, and I will stick with that. Is the best way to grow a business, is to surround yourself with people who are more talented than you, and definitely people that bring up your weaknesses and that they fill those gaps.
Yeah.
So I've that is my leadership style. That is how I've built this business. I'm self-aware enough to know that I might not be that person to be able to lead Sticky Fingers Cooking into the next territory with hundreds of franchise owners. I might not have that skill set. That might not be the best for the brand.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. We'll see what it looks like. I'm always going to be checking with my team and see what it looks like to grow and thrive. But Sticky Fingers Cooking is always been not about me, and it's well beyond me, and it's something that we just want to shepherd into the future, to have a long life.
I love that you said that. You just basically explained the recipe to be successful, truly successful as an entrepreneur. To say sometimes you have to figure out when to kind of get out of your own way and when to bring on the right people, and to knowing that you and the company are really two different entities. Yes, it's your baby. It'll always be your baby, but we always have to give the company what it needs, and that you have that wherewithal and just, that self-awareness to know that I've got to bring on the right people, and we don't know what the future holds, but you are an incredible visionary for the company, and you'll always be the heart and soul of the business, no matter what happens long term.
Thank you. You are an inspiration to me. So,
oh, thank you.
Follow. I'm going to be following your lead.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm happy to help any way I can. Erin, if someone was interested in learning more about Sticky Fingers Cooking, where would they go?
Yes, it's always a great place to start at stickyfingerscooking.com. That's our main website. We were talking about recipes earlier. We've written thousands of recipes, but I think we have about 850 up on our website right now. And so you can get a good taste of all of the wonderful things that we cook up. We cook up a lot of fun with our students. So you can kind of get a taste of what we do in the classroom, and get a feel for what Sticky Fingers Cooking is. And then we have stickyfingerscookingfranchise.com. Quite a mouthful. And that's where you will learn all about the franchise opportunity. You'd be able to see who's on our executive team and to get all of the ins and outs of what it looks like to pursue a Sticky Fingers Cooking territory. And we have a wonderful team of people ready to talk to you. I get on the calls. I'm always so excited to meet new people and to learn about them. So we're ready and waiting.
Awesome. All right. Well, Erin, I always finish every podcast with the franchise tip jar because, as you said earlier, the community is so generous with sharing information. So if I was an entrepreneur that was looking to franchise my concept, what would be maybe a piece of advice that you'd give me before I go ahead and jump into franchising?
Yeah, let's see. I'm going to give you two pieces.
Okay.
The first would to be to really self-reflect and see if you only have one outlet, whatever your business is. If you only have one outlet, open up another one and see if you can run it the same way, and if you can run it with the high caliber standards that you have with your first one, and to make sure that your systems are in place. And if you can do that twice, maybe even do it 3 times, but and to self-reflect on systems and processes, to take time and slow down. And I would say that I think that those are basic understandings before even thinking about franchising. And I think that my number one tip for the tip jar would be to find a mentor. I firmly believe in stories. Stories are how we learn, and experience shares and learning from people that have done what you want to do and have gone where you hope to go. That's where you're going to find the golden nuggets of wisdom, where then you get to impart their stories and decide if what path that you want to go on. I love learning. You always have to be learning, and you always have to be curious, and to have a mentor help you along the way is great. And then when you get to a certain stage, you get to be a mentor to a mentee, and it just keeps going. So I think mentorship is huge, and reaching out to people in the franchise community, and asking a lot of questions and learning as much as you possibly can.
Erin, that is amazing. You and I are in total alignment, and I'm so glad that our paths crossed at the Emerging Franchisor Conference when it did. By luck or fate, I'm so glad that we got a chance to meet, and so glad you're able to be on the show finally. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much. I call it kismet that I was in your roundtable. So it was a pleasure. Thank you so much, Frank.
Thanks, Erin. Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.